Okay, UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Nascimento. It's finally over, and this is my recap on this crazy cursed card. Starting with JJ Aldrich and Veronica Hardy. I predicted Veronica Hardy would win, and she won by decision. I thought maybe it would be possible for her to get a KO, but as with women's fights, as with regular women's fights that normally go to decision because women don't have that killer instinct, this was one of those moments. So Veronica Hardy won. That's all I have to say on that. Next fight was Charles Johnson and Jake Hadley. So I predicted for Charles Johnson to win, as he did. I think I recall him saying after like one of the rounds, his coach had told him to get his head out of his ass, because I think during round one he was still kind of like testing the waters and he wasn't sure how to approach the fight, but he is a better fighter. I think Jake Hadley just has a very simple approach and he doesn't know how to learn on the spot, whereas I feel like Charles Johnson was definitely able to do that, and he was just a little more tactful, and he won that fight pretty cleanly by decision. And yeah, that's just what happens when you have a better fight IQ. So next fight was the Billy Goff versus Trey Waters fight, and I had predicted for Billy Goff to win because Trey Waters has a big shiny head that he did in fact let bobble around that whole fight, but he was able to do more damage to Billy Goff, even though Billy Goff fought with all of his heart, and I could totally have seen the judges giving this to Billy Goff, but Trey Waters got it. Yeah, but I hope you guys recall that I did say that this was a fight that I was gonna skip betting on because the outcome was kind of iffy. So close fight and super brutal. I think it might win the fight of the night. Next on the card was Tabitha Ricci versus Tecia Pennington, and I had Tabitha Ricci to win because I thought she was just going to be a little quicker and land more strikes. She, however, realized that she wasn't as quick as Tecia Pennington, which I was kind of surprised by, but she decided to make this a grappling fight where she didn't really do much damage, but she did get, I guess, control time. And as we know with women's fights, not doing anything but holding your opponent in the clinch will give you points, I guess, or at least maybe that's how the judges see it. Okay, now moving on to the next fight, Terrence McKinney versus Esteban Ribovics. So, here are my thoughts on what happened here. I thought Terrence McKinney would probably go in there in round one, do a bunch of damage to the point where Esteban Ribovics would have a hard time in following rounds. I also thought that Esteban Ribovics would take a while to warm up in the first round, and that would give him a huge disadvantage. He, however, straight up KO'd Terrence McKinney in the side of the head with a fucking shin kick. So yeah, I don't think I've seen a guy go down like that. Like, I think when Terrence McKinney dropped, his whole jaw went crooked. So I don't know. I was kind of shocked. When that happened, I was just sitting on my sofa in disbelief. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that whole thing? All I'm gonna say is I don't know if I'm gonna trust Terrence McKinney again in the future. I just don't think that his fight IQ is all that, and based off what happened here, my trust in his ability has definitely diminished. Alright, moving on to the next fight, which was with Chase Hooper and Viacheslav Borschev. I had predicted for Viacheslav Borschev to get this one done. but I was also unsure. Honestly, I didn't expect Chase Hooper to be that powerful. I was shocked. I actually thought that Vyacheslav Borschev would have the better boxing. I thought he would be better on the feet and would be faster. But then Chase Hooper hit him with that hook and knocked him and then just demolished him on the ground. I mean, Vyacheslav Borschev did manage to stay alive, as I predicted he would, because he's super strong and durable. But, hats off to Chase Hooper. I didn't expect him to be that much of an animal, and the only thing is that, like, the refs called the fight because they thought that Borschev had tapped, when I think he was just, like, readjusting himself. Yeah, that super sucks for Vyacheslav Borschev, because he was really fighting through that, all just for the refs to call it, which I can imagine is insanely disappointing. He had the biggest, in Russian we call it shushka, on his head, and a bump on his head, I guess. I've never seen something like that. That was insane. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Man, I wish Vyacheslav Borschev won. I was really rooting for him. Yeah, I can't believe it. I think, old man Vyacheslav is probably going downhill from here on out. He hasn't been looking too hot in his previous fights, and after this, I don't know, I'm worried for his career. Okay, moving on to the next fight. Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Rebelis Despaigne. So, I thought Rebelis Despaigne was going to win. I thought he was going to win by KO over points. And, he did what he normally does in the beginning. He went in there and started going forward and, like, punching, but he fucked up and got taken down. And, that's what, at that point I was like, okay, well, he got taken down. He probably just wasn't careful. He's gonna, next round he'll learn and he'll do better, and that won't happen. And, he did it again the second round and the third round too. And he also had 0 answers on the ground. I don't think I've ever seen worse grappling ability from any of these fighters. Like, he had no answers, and I think the whole time the commentators were saying, like, oh, this is like day 1 practice in jiu-jitsu, you gotta shrimp out of there, and he just didn't do anything. It almost seemed like he gave up the second he got taken down, because he just had no ability on the ground. It was actually pretty crazy. Well, now that we've seen how Rebelis Despaigne does when he goes the distance, I think it's safe to say that this man can't do anything except for hit hard. So, yeah, when he's faced with a more versatile fighter like Acosta is, his strength means nothing. That's what we've learned here. Okay, moving on to the next fight. Alex Cacares versus Sean Woodson. So, I had predicted for Sean Woodson to win. I thought that his huge reach advantage would be more useful in this matchup, but apparently it wasn't, because he was missing a lot, and he, I don't know, he didn't hit as hard as I expected him to. A lot of the hooks he was throwing landed in Alex Cacares' hair. Anyhow, Woodson was actually better on the feet. I actually thought that there was a chance. I was waiting for Woodson to maybe try and get a takedown, but he never did. I thought that, I was hoping to see him grapple a bit, but he kept this a boxing match, and yeah, he won ultimately. I think this was a hometown hometown fight for him, so when decision time came around, I was pretty confident they were going to give it to him. So, yeah. Okay. Moving on to the next fight, which was with Mateusz Rebecki and Diego Ferreira. Oh man, I have so many thoughts on this fight. First of all, the round one, Mateusz Rebecki almost KO'd Ferreira. And it was so close. It was like at the end of the round, and he just like wasn't quite in the right position, and Diego Ferreira kind of like was like scrambling in the corner. And it was at the end of the round, he wasn't really able to do that much, and then I was like, oh fuck, okay, well second round he'll get it. And then second round he almost got a KO, but then he didn't. And something that I've learned from previous UFC fights is if a guy almost gets KO'd, he almost like comes back from the dead like somehow for the rest of the fight and then just does better. I don't know if it like awakens some sort of primal instinct within humans, but yeah, that's what happened. And anyhow, and then Ferreira just turned it all around and ultimately won. Just slowly start like also Rebecki's eyes were basically closed shut by the end of the third round. Like by the beginning of the third round, actually, they panned over to him and it was like he could barely see out of those things. So man, I'm kind of sad for Mateusz Rebecki because he, like, also by the end of the fucking third round, like, he was so beat and there was, like, nothing he could do, but he still tried to push through, and yeah. I don't know if you guys agree with the fact that guys who almost get KO'd, but then don't come back from the dead in, like, the following rounds and just somehow do really well. Like, I've seen this so many times in other fights. Yeah, it's almost actually when someone isn't able to like finish the other dude off, I almost like lose faith in that person who attempted the KO, because I'm like, well, that other dude is gonna come back real strong now. So yeah. All right, moving on to the next fight, which was Alonzo Minefield and Carlos Ulberg. I had Carlos Ulberg to win. You know, I thought he had the better fight IQ here, and I thought he was just a little better than Alonzo Minefield. Though some people were saying Alonzo Minefield got a lot better, and we didn't really get a chance to see much because Carlos Ulberg just straight up KO'd Alonzo Minefield within a few seconds in the first round. I actually looked away and then I blinked and I looked at the screen and I was like, oh shit, he's down. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. I mean, I don't really have much to say on what happened there other than Carlos Ulberg won. I was actually, during the weigh-ins, I was kind of unsure of how the outcome of the fight would be, because Alonzo Minefield looked pretty good. Carlos Ulberg looked pretty good. I thought this could really go 50-50. And I'm sure a lot of you guys did as well. But yeah. Okay, moving on to the next fight. Joaquin Buckley versus Nursulton Ruziboev. So Joaquin Buckley won. He was actually pretty full on in that fight. I didn't expect him to fight with so much heart. But he did, man. I didn't expect him to even go for takedowns that much, because I thought that he maybe would assume that that's Nursulton Ruziboev's, bread and butter, and he probably wouldn't be able to do that well against him there. But I guess he really trained for this fight, and I was surprised what he was able to do on the ground. I was surprised that he was able to get on top of Ruziboev like that and then just pound him. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, I initially thought that Nursulton Ruziboev would have a reach advantage here, and that would be enough for him to kind of keep Buckley away from him. But I do also feel like Buckley had experience some sort of hometown magic fuel running through his veins, because yeah, he did a lot better than I expected. So I don't know, hats off to Joaquin Buckley, because I really do think Ruziboev was a tough opponent. Yeah, you know, that's that. Okay, moving on to the next fight. And the last fight. Derek Lewis versus Rodrigo Nascimento. By this point in the card, by this point, I had such little faith. I was like, oh no, is Derek Lewis gonna also lose? Because this card was so full of crazy things that happened, you know, like things I just really did not expect at all. Like, they weren't even on my radar of possibilities. And so in the first 2 rounds, when Nascimento kind of was doing pretty well, like, I was almost questioning myself, and I thought, oh man, is Nascimento going to take this? And then, you know, as I had it predicted, Derek Lewis went in and hit him really hard with his big fat hand, and Nascimento went down. And then Derek Lewis proceeded to pound him in the head. I was actually, not gonna lie, I was kind of worried for Nascimento. For a second, I thought that he may have died. I'm sure that maybe you guys are like, oh no, of course, why? Like, it takes a lot more than that to kill a man. But, I don't know, man, Derek Lewis has a lot of strength, so, yeah. Yeah, Derek Lewis won that fight in the 3rd round. Anyhow, as I mentioned previously in my breakdown, these fight night cards usually have a lot more fuckery involved in them than the hundreds, like than the main UFC fights. And it's a lot more difficult to predict the outcomes. That's what I've noticed. So, and this, you know, tonight was a perfect example of that. I actually didn't think it would go this way, but, you know, this sport is full of surprises, so anyhow, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope that you guys made the right picks this week, and I will see you next time.